Welcome everyone to Educator Diaries. I'm Chantel.
I'm Maria.
And today is episode 16, Anxiety in Children and Parents. Are you or your child or someone you know experiencing anxiety? Well, today we're very lucky to welcome our guest speaker, Vanessa Stuart from Total You Coaching. So Vanessa is a parenting and anxiety coach.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, nice to meet you both.
So, Vanessa, tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I suppose I came from a fractured family.
Okay.
So I had to parent my parent and my siblings from a really, really young age. So it was a very, very trauma-based childhood, chaotic, all of those sorts of things. So for many, many reasons, but ultimately that was the beginning of my journey. Unfortunately, I've been married twice. So my first husband I married when I was quite young. I was 22 when I was married, unfortunately, and he battled his own mental health and I lost him to suicide.
Oh my gosh.
So I was only 29 when that happened. I hadn't had a family yet. So I then remarried and had my children and those sorts of things. Unfortunately, that marriage also didn't last and I've been a single mum for years and years and years.
Okay.
But all of that sort of rolled into led me to where I am today. Yeah, absolutely. So
that was probably the next question that came up. What inspired you to follow this career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose all of that sort of having to parent when I was young sort of gave me, it really did give me that passion. But being a mum myself and also then experiencing my own mental health, my husband's mental health and those journeys, again, you roll everything all into one to where we are sort of today. Yeah. So that's what inspired me sort of to become a teacher, then to become life coach.
So you're a school teacher?
I'm a school teacher by trade.
Okay.
So primary or?
Primary school. I actually rolled because I didn't study until after my second marriage fell apart.
Okay.
So I had 2 kids under 3, starting full-time uni.
Like a mature age student?
As a mature age student. I actually didn't finish year 12 due to my own family circumstances. But
sometimes that's when you get the best teachers as well, because you're passionate and you're mature and you understand what you're actually teaching.
And you bring some of that life. So.
Yes, massive difference.
Yeah. Sometimes you are where you're meant to be
at the time.
Yeah.
So before that, I rolled from job to job or career to career. I ran my own family daycare. I was a legal secretary. I worked for a judge. I did sales.
Wow. We've got a whole lot of podcasts here we can get Vanessa in for.
My kids tell me, if there's anything you haven't done, Mum.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's good. That's good. So with training and experience, so did you have to do, you've obviously got your teaching degree.
I do.
Is there anything else that you've done?
On top of that?
On top of that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did my, obviously once my kids, I sort of did my full-time teaching degree. I ran my own family daycare as well. So that gave me sort of some of that businessy type experience. But then I went on during COVID. I was diagnosed with a vocal disorder in actual fact, just before COVID. And so during COVID, I was wondering whether I was ever going to be able to teach again. And I actually am not allowed to teach because my voice doesn't sustain a full day of teaching now. Right, I actually lose my voice and I can't breathe. And it was very complicated, but that's irrelevant. Yeah. But it led me into studying, and I became a life coach with specialties in parenting, kids, relationships. And then I actually sort of also continued to study and did hypnosis, which is where the specialty with kids working with kids with ADHD and people generally all the way through the spectrum with anxiety, because hypnosis is such a great tool for being able to treat anxiety, either complementary or independently.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
And then I've done lots of mental health sort of courses and those sorts of things as well.
Okay, so what would be the main reason that you come across that you see why children are facing anxiety, why they're dealing with anxiety?
Okay, it's an interesting one. Okay, so anxiety is actually a disorder of the body first. But what we do is we tend to treat it with the mind and we forget about the body. And so we intellectualize it. generally, the other part of that question, or the answer to your question, is that anxiety is actually a disorder of separation. So for little kids, it generally starts as a separation, like all kids naturally developmentally go through that separation anxiety, but that's a normal part of development. It's when it becomes something bigger than that. And for whatever reason, and this is not putting down any parent, because you can't predict whether your child is going to feel that separation anxiety more or less.
Yep.
You can't predict it. So please, no parent take this as a criticism. In actual fact, you can't predict it. But for whatever reason, whether it be genetically, whether it be just personality-wise, your child feels that separation more, that then can trigger that anxiety feeling. And so for whatever reason, children then don't feel safe and secure.
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that they're not. It just means that their body doesn't feel it.
Right.
And so often now kids are so little that it's hard to actually be able to get them to understand that. So that's part of the difficulty with anxiety in younger children, until they're old enough for you to have
those conversations
and
rationalise it.
And start to put it more into mind than body. So that's, but why they feel it is because they've separated. And then as we get older, it becomes separation from ourselves, because they, as children, especially, and if there is trauma, we tend to go, well, I can't blame the person who's caused the trauma, because when we're young, we respect an adult.
Yes.
It's inbuilt to do that. So who do we criticise?
Ourselves.
Right.
And so for children, and that's why often parents, or adults, I shouldn't say parents, adults who have anxiety often will have an unhealed childhood trauma. Doesn't have to be this big major thing. It could be just something little that's happened that's made them feel unsafe.
Yeah, and then they've like built that up maybe in their own minds. Like you said, it doesn't have to be.
Carried it through with them and suppressed it.
Correct.
And and
it's why lots of us, me included, this was my journey, we become high-functioning anxious people. So we have high-functioning anxiety. So to look at from the outside,
no one would know.
You get on with it and you just do it. You might. There are lots of things we do as that. It might be you collapse of a night time when you get home. You get in the shower and you cry your eyes out, and you sort of sometimes you even go, "Why am I crying?"
Yes.
And it's funny that you said that, because I actually know quite a few people that have said to me, "Oh, I suffer from this, I suffer from that." You go, "Really?" Like, would not have picked that, but it's that's not until they sort of kind of tell you, like, little things that will even trigger them as an adult, like even reading into a conversation too much, and like things like that as well.
Yes, I remember going through terrible patch of anxiety. Remember?
Yes.
And I think just to both of us, and I think it was great just to lighten it up for me. We used to say, "Oh, my psycho stage." It just overtook me, and it became, at the time I owned the kindergarten, and I was
working for Maria at that stage,
and put a lot of pressure on Chantel, because I just didn't cope.
Absolutely,
I didn't cope with. And like you said, all of a sudden I'm okay. I look okay.
Yep.
All of a sudden I feel like I just couldn't breathe. And is anybody else feeling the same? Anyone's heart racing? It's all those emotions.
Yeah.
That you think, wow, like it's so going through. Like I got through it after 18 months of it. It was, some people go longer.
Absolutely.
2, 3, 4 years of anxiety. But I went and got some help, and I look back and I think I never want to go down that road again, because it's. Become aware of what's happening with you right now.
Yep.
And being aware is to say, right, okay, this is not what's this is where my path is leading. And
awareness is a big part of the cure, actually healing. So
acknowledging it, is that what you're saying?
It's part of the process, is acknowledging that those feelings are there, because anxiety becomes an overthinker's disorder, because we feel it first generally, but then we try to intellectualize it, and then we sort of overthink and overthink and overthink, and that actually creates more anxiety. So we have different sort of different ways. I separate them into two ways of being able to deal with anxiety: a coping strategy and a healing strategy.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then those two.
Yeah, because the more you resist it, the more it comes.
Absolutely.
So it's embracing it and being aware of it.
And that's the scary part.
I know, and it's the most scary part, but it's the most
Healing part.
Of common sense of thinking, well, if I do that. But the fear of thinking, if I embrace it, why do I want to embrace it? Why do I want to keep it?
Yeah.
But it's not. It's embracing it and then let's go.
And if we go back to parents,
Yes.
sort of, we see that anxiousness in our children. And one, we want to protect them. We want to take away the feelings. We want to make them feel better.
Reassure.
And where we do all of those things. And not that they're bad things, but what we do is we live in a world where we value the mind.
Yep.
And so people that are emotionally irrational or are sort of on this bit of a roller coaster and those sorts of things, we don't tend to value that. And so people do. They suppress how they're feeling. We often don't share those feelings as adults. But for our children, what we do is we want to go back and fix that. And we don't actually just let our children feel.
Yeah.
And then that becomes bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, that makes sense actually, doesn't it? Especially at the preschool, you would see so many children with those anxiety problems, and a lot of the times it was like parents going, "I'll just buy you a toy. This afternoon when I pick you up, I'll buy you this. I'll buy you that." Like,
you don't know what to do.
Yeah, and they just want to make them feel better, and that's what we do as parents. Want to make them not hurt and what have you. So,
but in actual fact, that learning to hurt or that learning to feel
and express themselves and what is wrong, you tell me, okay.
Absolutely, those things actually have to be explicitly taught. Now, the problem we have with that is often in our generation and older, that's actually not something we were ever taught to do. You were taught to sweep it under the carpet.
You were told to suck it up.
Yes.
Yeah. Suck it up, get on with it. Yeah, exactly. Sweep it under the carpet. And if anything big happened, it was like, okay, you get this little tiny amount of time and get on with it.
Yeah.
So we don't live in a world that values the feeling.
No. But I also remember going to the doctor thinking, why am I, there's something must be happening. I must be, because it was after my dad had died. And I was thinking, maybe I've got the same sickness, maybe I'm, and did all the tests under the sun, everything was fine. But then to get told it's all in the head, I was like, what do you mean it's all in the head? Like it's
because you were feeling those things.
Yeah.
And
it was just like, what do you mean it's in the head? No, you don't understand. You don't understand that. I feel like I can't breathe, or all of a sudden my fingers go tingly, and I'm, having like all of a sudden I get hot and then I get cold, and then
exactly.
It's so hard. And then again too, which is, there's no right or wrong with this. It's up to everybody, their own choice. But I remember her saying, take these tablets.
Absolutely.
And I took one. And then I was stressed and anxious about taking that one.
Yeah.
So I added on top of it.
And that's what anxiety does. It builds and it stacks.
Yes.
And that's where it can be a hard disorder to treat, because we're stacking these things because we're intellectualising.
Yeah. So I felt like it was just a Band-Aid. It was just because then I said to Mum, I said, this is just changing who I am. And I don't know if you remember, I came to my kindy walking in like I was just
like a bit of a robot, like
a zombie.
And I just thought, so the next day I didn't take them, I was back to the whole anxiety and that.
That's right.
But I thought, okay, I feel like I could control it, more manageable than when being on a medication. But,
Absolutely.
Like I said, it's no right or wrong.
There isn't a right or wrong.
Yeah,
and I know it was one of the things we talked about sort of earlier, where sort of, can it be a quick fix? And my answer is probably no, not in most cases. Generally speaking, although that's not a...
Do you find that it's being a quick fix for a majority of people?
Look, I think there are a lot of doctors out there that don't understand it.
Right. Okay.
Don't understand anxiety. So the medication becomes that it's an easy, because it dulls those feelings and you become a zombie. And we see it in kids as well.
Yeah.
So
and teenagers.
All
my girls at the school, they used to say how many girls were on antidepressants and I was like, my goodness.
And again, it goes back to we're not taught how to feel.
Yeah.
So all of those things. And so medication can be a quick fix. unless you're sitting in that severe anxiety that's stopping you from functioning at all.
Okay.
Sometimes medication can be required to, and I'm not a medical practitioner,
Yeah.
so
That might be what you need to get out of that.
You just need that to be able to give you that sense of, okay, I can get up out of bed, now I can actually start to do something to move myself forward. And so it's a very individual sort of situation.
Are you seeing more of an increase in parents with anxiety?
That's a really interesting question. Yes, we are, and children with anxiety, and actually anxiety overall as a community or as a
and it's also got a lot more traction and publicity. Like, you know, I know, for instance, in Penrith, you have the men's walk and
the women's walk even now.
Yeah, so there's a lot of those. When I say traction, I guess the beauty is that we do talk about it more than what we ever have, because there's no way that would have been happening back when we were younger. If our parents, as men, aren't going for walks talking about their feelings, that would have never have happened.
Well, even when I lost my husband to suicide, these things weren't around.
Yeah,
so there was no, and you didn't talk about it even with your partners. Sort of, it was taboo, basically.
Yes, you're right.
So yes, we're seeing a more of a prevalence of anxiety, but I think in part that goes to the fact that we are talking about it, and we are diagnosing sort of people with chronic anxiety and being able to do that. But we're in that horrible stage at the moment where there's not enough research yet and what's actually working, and some things are working, some things aren't, and what works for who. That's
it too, because it's probably an individual thing. There's no tick a box. Yep, you know, you've done this, this, and this, so now you should be fine. Like,
exactly.
It comes back to that individual person and how they're feeling and what how they're dealing with it. So.
And like you said, sort of, when we were talking about, it's scary to actually deal with those feelings. So it depends on whether that person needs coping strategies just to get through the day-to-day, or whether they're prepared to actually heal where the anxiety comes from. And they're actually two very different strategies in how you deal with that person. Or child even, sort of, and we do find that correlation between ADHD and anxiety as well.
Right.
So when someone reaches out to you through your business, and so what's your initial sort of
it's always a conversation first. It depends, obviously, whether I'm dealing with a child or an adult. Sort of with a child, definitely looking at sort of where they're feeling it and those sorts of things.
What age would you say a child?
Look, I tend not to try and work with anybody under sort of 5, sort of when they're starting to develop that ability to be able to communicate themselves, because you want them to take control of their anxiety. Because the thing is when we try and fix it for somebody, we can't. We just put the Band-Aid over it. So 5 onwards, basically. Although primarily I have been working more with adults, other than in my role in the Department of Education or in my classroom or sort of those sorts of things, because I haven't yet opened rooms. I'm just actually about to sort of start doing that. I'm going to do some one, because I think for littler kids, over Zoom is too hard. And those sorts of things. So obviously post-COVID, we stayed with Zoom for a while. So most of my business is initial conversation, and then I tailor a plan depending on what the person needs. And that can be a combination of of various modalities. Coaching, sort of, I've done counselling units as part of my study. I haven't done a full counselling degree, but counselling units. So it can be a combination of those counselling units. It can be the NLP, which is sort of fits into that timeline therapy sort of area, and then hypnosis as well as, and then it just depends on what the individual person needs.
Right. So you say hypnosis over the Zoom that you do?
That would be
you can do hypnosis over Zoom. You've just got to have a quiet space for that person. Okay. So it's actually, I didn't think so either, and I'll have to be honest with you, I was really anti-hypnosis.
Well, you're saying that. As my daughter's studying natural therapies, that she's wanting to know a little bit about the hypnosis.
Okay,
And but at first, originally, I think
about
someone overtaking your body and you doing all these stupid things, and then,
that's
then you're left in that trance. They can leave you in that trance forever,
and you can't.
Right.
You can't actually be left there.
Okay. Right.
There you go.
So unless you're doing a clinical sort of really
Like a deep dive type thing.
into regression in like past lives is
Right.
what they say, and sort of or very much in a child's deep.
yes.
But that takes a very, very specialised person to be able to do that. For most of us with hypnosis training, you're looking at just a deep meditation is what you're looking at.
Right, I was
And
about to say that.
Yeah, and
Right,
that's
okay.
that's where hypnosis really sits.
right,
So
okay.
you can't be left in trance. You can't be hypnotised.
Right.
So all of these old watch the
okay.
watch and sort of do those
Right.
sorts of things. You can't actually. That's actually their entertainment things.
Right.
So,
okay. So that's interesting.
it is.
When my daughter was saying that, I think, do you really? But now that you're saying it,
It makes sense,
It makes
yeah.
sense to the connection of what she's studying.
Yes.
And meditation, being in a meditated state.
Correct.
Hypnosis is
A part of that.
part of that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely,
right,
yeah. It's an
okay.
extension to that, absolutely.
Wow,
And a
okay.
great natural therapy sort of to be able to use for so many things.
Yeah, and even too, like I think those sort of things, if medication or whatever isn't the path that you want to take, or
Exactly.
you know, there's, like you said, there's other techniques out there that you can use in order to, you know,
Yeah, support.
Yeah.
Support,
Yeah, absolutely. Because what do you do if I don't go to medication? And our other problem is that our healthcare system at the moment is so overloaded
yeah,
that it's such a long wait to get into a psychologist or a counsellor even, that people are having to, and that was part of the reason I started to delve into this, because I was watching so many people be unsupported.
Yep.
And it's like, how can I do this?
Yeah.
So
That's amazing. That's
without
amazing.
having to go and do a medical degree, and without having to do another 5 years of counselling.
yeah,
or
and
psychology.
even like cost wise, like I don't know, like I wouldn't know what a psychologist is charging and things like that as well. Like
a minimum of about $180, and I say that because I've had my own. I've had my own.
sessions.
treatments.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
In Queensland, I mean, you know,
Minimum.
some of the parents, because I know, because I work with children on the spectrum,
Yes.
and some psychologists are charging like $260 an hour.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you get anything back from Medicare, you might get 50 or 60, maybe an $80 back. So you're still out of pocket a lot.
Yeah.
And it was probably the thing that held me back from going.
Well, I was going to say that there'd be so many people out there that just can't afford to get help or can't, you know,
Correct.
like, so like what do you do? Like if someone does, you know, like obviously they start with their GP. Is
Absolutely,
that what they normally would
normal,
do? Yeah.
Under normal circumstances, if someone is feeling as though they need support, they would generally go to their GP, get a mental health plan, and that gives you 6 Medicare supported sessions. Now, the problem with that is that lots of people don't actually accept just the Medicare rebate.
No.
Right.
So
yes.
even for myself, sort of when I'm seeing my psychologist, sort of his full rate is $180, which is still so reasonable. Okay, I get $100. No, I get $80 of that back, so it's about $100 still out of pocket.
Out of pocket.
And that was like, as you said, in Queensland, I was looking at psychologists for myself and an extended family, and there was $300, $350.
Yeah.
And it's like, how does a person, especially if you've got young children that
Yeah,
need
like,
support.
I was about to say that as well. Like, you know, there's children that are going through this. Like, it could be a whole family going through
Absolutely.
something. So yeah, like how I don't know. Yeah.
And the problem is that to become, like we say, we've got the NDIS program now, which is fabulous for these families.
Yeah.
But it's not actually very easy or cost effective to become NDIS certified.
Right. Yes.
So
that in itself is also a very difficult. So we want to be able to utilise it. So it's, for me professionally, it's been, how do I sit in this space and still be able to, one, make it cost effective for myself.
Well, I was going to say that
Yes,
100%
we have to,
because
yeah.
As a small business owner, sort of who is still supporting my family and got my own children and those sorts of things, as well as then wanted still to be able to offer those services. So, and I think I found the right way to do that at the moment.
That's
so
fantastic. Yeah,
that's where I'm heading.
Because your average person just, you know, forking out that, I was just saying the other day to just a friend, just even to go to the doctors now,
Yeah.
because they don't bulk bill.
Bulk bill, yep.
A lot lot of people, how could they afford that? You know, you pay your $75 up front and then yes, Medicare gives you back. But some people can't actually put the money up front.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why, like, I've decided that as going out and sort of this year is that I'm not even going to try and worry about the Medicare or the NDIS to start with, and just go in at that lower rate that sort of that
to assist people.
So that people don't have to pay that bigger rate and then wait for a Medicare refund.
Well, you can see that you're so passionate about that. So that's where it comes from. So when we're looking at saying an anxiety attack, and I remember when I was going through it, we just wanted to know some tools to help manage. Okay. Right there in the moment.
Yeah. Right there in the moment. What do you do? You know? Absolutely. And it's such a hard thing because when you're in it, you're feeling out of control.
Yes.
In every way. So the first thing to try and remember is that it's your body first. So it is your body. If you're having an anxiety attack, your body is dysregulated.
Okay, so like a breathing, like is that...
And that's where that's why everybody talks about breathing.
Breathing,
In actual fact, one of the things that I find work, both for children and for you can do yourself depending on, is being able to identify where that feeling is. Is it in my belly? Is it in my head? Is it in my chest? In my heart?
Yes.
My throat?
Yeah, my throat.
Mine's my throat.
That's
where mine sits. So, and being able to put a hand, so if you've got a child, for instance, that says, oh, but my belly hurts. Okay, you put your one hand, stand side onto them, put one hand on the front of their belly where that feeling is.
Right.
And and then the other hand on their back and meet them. Just that feeling of hold and support. Yep. Because you have to remember that anxiety is separation. And so instantly that gives them a sense of, okay, and your body can start to recognise that. And it doesn't say, it's not going to take it from a 10 to a 2, but it's going to take it from 10 to a 5, maybe.
Yes.
And
that could be enough to actually, break that.
And that's exactly, and one of the biggest problems we see is in anxiety sufferers is then them start to isolate and not do things. School refusal. I feel anxious, so I'm not going to school. And all of those sorts of things. Yeah. And so, but in actual fact, that actually makes the problem worse.
Right.
So you have to have these coping strategies first to be able to go, okay, I'm holding you. Let's just stand. It's okay. So, but there are obviously breathing is one of them, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, the other one that actually helps is changes in temperature.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so again, it's about your body.
Yeah.
Put your hands in really cold water.
Yeah, because I know even with me, I thought when I had the childcare centre, I was starting to feel that anxiety thing, but probably was a bit of menopause coming on in, but I would get hot, like around my neck. I'd get this burning sensation, and like I'd be so hot. And I'd be like, okay, and so is that
cold face wash around the neck?
Yep.
Eat an ice block.
Oh.
Yep.
Sort of because those changes in temperature allow your sympathetic nervous system to kick in and start to calm.
Yeah. And these are really good things that, you know, you could even get a child to do because they'd be happy to
have an ice block.
Yes.
Rather than have a lemonade ice block, if that's what you want, than to continue to be caught in that process. So if you can then get that to that, just bring the edge off it. I love drawing for kids. Draw you, draw me. Where's that feeling? Colour it in for me. All of those sorts of things.
Yes.
As an adult, I colour in. So it's...
my daughter does the same. My oldest daughter, when she colours in, she feels like it calms her down.
Well, that's become really big, those colouring in books and things like that, hasn't it?
It's funny. It's funny because when I see her doing that, I think, that's the last thing I'd want to do. Isn't it funny how someone else...
It's therapeutic.
Correct.
It doesn't work for me, I was like, and she says to me, Mum, it calms me so much down. I said, thank goodness for that.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Now, I'm not a great drawer. Even as a teacher. Kids used to make fun of me as a teacher. Draw it on the board. What is that, miss?
Well, let's play a game. I guess.
Exactly. But I do what's called neurographic art.
Right.
Which is just, in its simplest forms, is basically close your eyes, take a pen and squiggle on the page.
Right.
And then put some lines through it and then colour it in.
Oh, yep.
And then start to think you're attaching a positive thought to that.
Wow.
So,
So
for me,
again, that's another great adult and child
correct,
technique.
Absolutely. So, but drawing for the younger ones, they can draw, play, obviously. Play it out, drama, and especially when a child is not in the middle of an anxiety attack, play it out with them.
Yep.
When you actually teach your body what it's going to feel like, it's like that law of attraction.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So
you mean like if a child's like not having an attack and you say, let's talk about the attack that you had yesterday.
Correct. Yeah.
What do you think? Like, and just talk to them about it.
And let's replay it. Because you're not in it.
Right, okay.
Because the thing to remember is as soon as your body goes offline, your brain goes offline.
Yeah.
Right.
So they can't. If your body's dysregulated, you cannot regulate your thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that becomes sort of, because that's what we try to do. We try to intellectualise it, but you can't.
Yep.
So, because it doesn't matter.
Yep.
So, and obviously the other thing is movement, that change in physical state.
Okay.
Let's walk.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's where play for a kid. Let's build Lego. Let's build a tower. Let's knock it down.
Yeah.
Sort of, if we can get out to the sand.
Yes.
All of those sorts of things. So take an ice block and walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of those sorts of things together.
Yeah, no, they're really good tips. Like I said, not just for school, childcare, whatever, but for parents.
Absolutely.
You know,
and themselves.
Yeah.
Because we often see that a parent, that if we see a child that has anxiety, more often than not, we actually can say that we've also got a parent that has anxiety.
Yeah, and whether or not it came from like the parent's anxious because the child's anxious or other way around
It doesn't
as well.
matter.
So
but we generally don't. We generally have both, and whether it's a genetically passed down, or whether it's an learnt behaviour. So whether from trauma, whether it be like there's so many reasons it can come from.
Yeah, 'cause I believe because Clara was only 12 months old when I was going through it, like the thick of it all.
Yep.
Probably 8. She was 8 months because after she turned 12 months, I was starting to get some therapy to help with it.
Yep.
And that's why I think sometimes now I look at her and I think, wow, okay, that the whole bonding time as a baby. Because I was very disconnected from her. Yeah. And I was fortunate to have mum that was, helping me a lot through it. But I look at her now and I think, is that something that, like it's a learnt behaviour that from when she saw me as, a mother not coping.
And they feel it.
Yes. It's feeling, yes.
Yeah, they feel your anxiety. So it's not necessarily... And because postpartum depression and anxiety wasn't something we talked about for a very, very long time, we unconsciously can pass those things on to our babies. So, they become learnt. And that's not a criticism. It's just simply...
Yeah. And that's life sometimes.
It is.
We can't control everything and we can't, we try to... Maybe that's part of it too. We try and control things.
I was
way
just
too
about
much.
to say exactly that. In actual fact, anxiety is a disorder of control as well. And so, and realising that we actually don't have control of everything.
No, we don't.
So, and it's when, and that was me. Sort of had a traumatic childhood, sort of lost my husband, sort of then my marriage didn't work.
It's like,
nothing. And that was when I realised that how anxious I actually was. So it took me into my 30s, and even really just the last 12 months had another bout.
Wow.
Because circumstances have changed.
And
it was like, oh, I've now got teenagers that drive.
Yes.
All of those sorts of things. And you go, oh, I've got no control again.
That's right. I don't have any control. Except for Life 360, I've got a little bit of control. I can still stalk those children.
I've got Apple Find My iPhone. Actually, I don't want the Life 360 because if he is driving fast, I don't want to know about it. I know I'm going to feel even more anxious.
It's damn if you do and damn if you don't.
I
know. It's too funny.
Goodness.
But what sort of techniques would you sort of provide for parents to minimise their stress in their lives?
My biggest things are routines. Right. Routines help if you've got an anxious child and if you're anxious, routines. Again, we go back to control.
Yeah.
So those routines, preparing.
We can have some sort of control.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You control the things that you can and then let the things go that you can't.
Right.
And that's a really tough ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a really good quote.
Oh, I should patent that. That's probably come from somewhere else. Calmness.
Right.
In actual fact, for a parent and or a child, but a parent that has anxious children, calmness.
Yeah.
And it's tough when your child's pushing your button and they've been having a tantrum for the last 2 hours.
Yes.
How do you stay calm?
Yes.
Because that's actually what they need from you. And that's the problem. In our age group, we weren't taught to emotionally regulate ourselves, let alone be able to emotionally regulate for our children. And that's where the big learning is in parenting at the moment, is that peaceful parenting and calm parenting and all of those sorts of things. But being able to, I'm not in my parenting classes that I run, as I say to them, I'm not don't smack your child, don't do this, don't do that, only do this and be totally, you never yell, never.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah. You're a realist.
We're human.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
So
it's not all like, and darling, okay, please come
Exactly.
and sit down. Like,
That
we
gives,
understand.
that gives me anxiety.
Yeah. We might start like that, but then it might end up like, right, did you hear me? Did you hear me? How many times?
And I've unplugged, by that stage, I've yelled and I've unplugged the PlayStation cord because you haven't listened to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but at least being aware of it and being aware of your own triggers as a parent is so important, because again, we go back to that. Often anxiety is formed in a childhood trauma that often we don't even remember.
Right.
But our body stores
remember.
it.
Yeah.
Right,
So we like
It sort of stays dormant.
It does.
Until an event happens in your life.
But sometimes it stays permanently dormant, except for the feeling.
And you don't know what that feeling
Correct,
is.
exactly right. And so it's a rabbit hole, as we said earlier. Don't want to go down it too much, but we can sort of, your amygdala stores even the earliest of memories. So we say we don't remember being a baby. In actual fact, we do, but we can't retrieve those memories.
Right.
They're just stored in your
Stored,
amygdala.
yeah.
So you could have, for instance, if you've had a traumatic childbirth, your child could have stored memories of that childbirth, and so that's they've needed an intervention when they've been born straight away. So they haven't got from you to being held. Sort of, they've missed that safety.
Yes.
So their body stores it.
Right.
So that's like a whole rabbit hole.
But
it makes sense.
But
That
that's
makes
exactly
sense,
right.
yes, I
So it's
totally
that
agree.
goes in with that calmness. So sometimes we don't know where our triggers are. We don't know why it triggers us. And that's part of the complexity of dealing and treating anxiety and sort of depression and all of those sorts of things. Then I would go back to explicitly teaching children how to emotionally regulate. So emotionally regulate, communicate.
Yeah.
We just assume that they watch, and they do. Lots of things are absorbed just by watching us.
Yes.
So if your communication with your husband or your other children, your older children, your younger ones are seeing a different parent maybe than your older children had, so you get different reactions.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and it's why some children say, but you got this mum or dad and I got this mum or dad, because they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or different stages in your life, you're a different person as well.
Absolutely, because we're not meant to stay stagnant. We're meant to grow.
Yeah.
So you might have had a baby at 18 and then had another one sort of at 28. You're going to be a different parent.
Yeah, 100%.
No matter what. So,
Yeah.
but don't assume. Explicitly teach.
Okay.
So, and as teachers, sort of, or early childhood educators, we know that you have to explicitly teach. But that's one of the things I teach in my parenting courses is don't assume.
Okay.
You actually have to explicitly teach that feelings of anxiety and those sorts of things. And we go back to what we were talking about earlier. When they're not feeling it, sort of like when you go out with your 2-year-old and they sort of don't share and those sorts of things, what can you do at home? You go practice that.
Exactly.
It's those same things.
Yeah, have those conversations when it's not a big deal.
Correct. And because it goes back to what we said before.
They'll take their information in like more as well. So
yeah, exactly. As soon as there's an emotion involved, the mind's off. It's why you can't reason with someone who's angry.
Yes. Yeah.
There is no way, because the amygdala's taking control and the thinking brain's gone.
Yeah.
So they can't operate together. So
Wow.
Yeah, like I know an issue like with so it's like when you've got your own children, you see your children going through it. Sometimes you think, I know how to cope, I know how to do this, but your children don't tend to sort of want to listen to you.
Absolutely.
As such, and it's always, and it's great for someone like you, Vanessa, that you come along and you can sort of guide them. So how does someone get onto you and reach you?
Look, I'm happy to even have DMs to my personal Facebook page, sort of, because I think my personal life is my business life, so it's what I do.
Yeah.
But I'm on Instagram at Total You Coaching, just total_you_coaching.
Yeah.
And then I do have a business, Total You Facebook page. I'm totalyoucoaching.com website, although I don't use that a lot, but but my phone number is on there as well. So
We'll put those details in the link.
Yeah, definitely.
and if someone just wants me to reach out to them because they'd like some more information and those sort of, if they just text me the word anxiety or parenting, and then I can reach out to them at a time that works.
So you cover from children to teenagers to
adults.
To adults. I actually am trained to do business coaching and general life coaching.
Okay.
So my hypnosis does weight loss and
fantastic.
I've spent the last 5 years almost just kept training.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Because I've loved it so much.
No, well, we can tell like by your energy as well, and like all your knowledge. So hopefully, we've reached out to a few people today that can use some of those really good tips as well.
Yep, and keep an eye out. There'll be a podcast coming, a Total You podcast coming this year at some stage.
Yeah, there we go. That sounds good.
Well, thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming today and talking to us. It's been really great and enlightening, and hoping we can make a difference in someone's life just by listening.
Make a difference to one person. It's all worth it.
That's it. And thank you again. And
so today I'll just leave you with this quote before we go. There is hope even when your brain tells you there isn't.
There certainly is.
all right.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Ciao, ciao.